本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。What's good, Internet? It's Monday, August 17th, and you're listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 337. I'm your host, Austin Walker. Joining me today, Ricardo Contreras.
Yo.
Rob Zacny.
Good morning.
Patrick Klepek.
I'm here.
I don't know why I sounded so definitive at the end there. I was like, and Patrick
he's
Klepek.
here.
Boom.
Rob, is that orange juice?
Is that beer? Is that a Radler?
Is that orange? Not. Nope, it's a blue moon. That's
It looks
close.
like a blue moon.
Yeah.
It did look.
Look, it's a cider, so it's a juice.
Right. Right.
Okay.
All right.
Sure. Okay.
Fair.
You know, happy Monday,
not wrong.
everyone. Yeah.
Let's go.
Rob
Let's
had a
roll.
late embargo last night, which we'll get to for sure. Your review of Microsoft Flight Simulator is up. I'm very excited to read it and to talk to you about it. But we do have some. We have to hit. We should probably just open up on news from last week that we just missed.
It's always good when news happens right as you close the podcast.
Yeah. We saw that thing come together moments after the pod, right?
Well, I pasted a link before we did the podcast. I was like, "Hey, I think this is a big deal. I'll get to it when we're done recording," which is true. I did get to it. We're done recording,
Yeah.
and then it snowballed.
It escalated quickly.
It escalated quickly, but also it did escalate according to exactly what you think.
In some
Right.
ways, it did not escalate quickly at all. In some ways, it was just somebody laying out a map and
Right.
just going along their quest journey.
Yeah.
Is it escalating
They knew it
quickly
would-
when you raise the curtain before a performance? Like, no, the performance was planned all along.
Yeah.
You know. So Fortnite developer, this is the headline here on your story. Fortnite developer Epic Games is suing Apple for anti-competitive practices. After Apple took Fortnite down from the App Store, the developer filed a lawsuit in retaliation. Patrick, do you want to set this up a little bit so we can dig into what the hell happened?
Yeah. So on so Thursday morning, the story that I mentioned that I pasted into our Slack that was like, I'll get to this after the podcast was that Epic announced on Thursday morning they had added the ability to purchase V-Bucks, which is the in-game currency to buy cosmetics, costumes, and et cetera, in Fortnite directly through Epic, and to sidestep Apple's in-house payment processor and Google's equivalent on the Google Play Store, and that is important because you're not allowed to do that. You are not able. The way the App Store and the Google Play Store function is that if you are listing things in that store, every transaction for video games, and I believe this includes DLC or microtransactions and purchasing of a game outright, 30% goes to Apple and Google, and then 70% goes to the developer. It's not exact because there's credit card transactions, yada yada. So it's like there's some cents and dollars that get kind of sloshed around, but that's the basic sort of split. And Fortnite is a free-to-play game, so it doesn't cost anything to download. And so all the money that Epic is making is based on the aesthetic transactions that they're ripping off from black artists within to then sell to their kids across the world. And this was tied to a promotion in which they were discounting by 20% V-Bucks on every other platform except for mobile. But on mobile, you could get that 20% off, basically it being $7 instead of $10, if you used Epic's payment system, which basically when you clicked it or tapped it, it brought up like a part of the Epic Games Store and whatever account, whatever you had linked there. Like for me, when I clicked it, it brought up my PayPal account was connected to Epic. And that allows them to take the full $7 as opposed to giving some off to Apple and Google. And my understanding of technically how they did this, because typically updates go through a review process through Apple and Google. It's not like you just like, hey, I'm adding new features to my app and just like upload. Like updates that are downloaded as patches through both those storefronts go through a review process. And there was a way they did this where they were able to like do it server side or something like, I'm speaking a little bit out of my ass, but they were able to do it without going through the review process, in which Apple or Google would have said, nah, like you can't put this through. They put this up. They put a blog post. They're like very specific about what was happening here, and not even cheeky at this point. It was just like, hey, this is how you can save money, and we're doing this to kind of basically we're doing this to get around the payment systems, the gatekeeping that happens on these two platforms. And as soon as that goes up, the initial response we had, a lot of people had, was, oh, they're daring Apple and Google to take the app down from the store because they are clearly blatantly violating Apple and Google's policies. And then, roughly an hour later, Apple took it down, and then a couple hours later, Google ended up taking it down. From there was a series of escalations where the moment it got taken down from the App Store, the Epic had a lawsuit ready to be filed. And the moment Google took it down, they had a lawsuit ready to be filed, in which both of them paint narratives of like that Apple and Google are the oppressors, keeping Epic from becoming not just a $17.3 billion company, but a $20 billion company. And yeah, that's sort of where we're at now currently. You can still re-download Fortnite from the Google Play and App Store if you already have it. The games continue to function. You can still purchase things through both versions of the app. I think what Epic has said is that because of now that it's been removed from the storefronts, they can't update the game properly.
Right.
So you'll be stuck at whatever version of the game it was last updated to. It doesn't seem like the game will break. It just means that new seasons, new cosmetics, new updates, new
that won't break it.
Vehicles.
You won't be able to.
It's my understanding is that you'll just be stuck in time. But part
with
of the appeal
other
of
players
Fortnite,
that are stuck in time.
With the players that are playing on iOS, like you will only be matched up and playing with people who are on version 6.75, 8, or whatever it is. Like you're just stuck in time here at what the store was, at what the game was, and obviously a huge part of Fortnite is the big events and the new seasons and the new cosmetics. Like that's a huge part of the pull of continuing to play it, and so those players will be stuck in stasis. Which to get out of that, I guess the last part of it is when that lawsuit was filed, Epic also held an in-game event where they had a really shitty piece of propaganda in which they decided they're going to weaponize their child army by parodying an advertisement that no child has any. I'm 35 and like I'm aware of it through cultural like osmosis, but like have no like particular reverence for the Ridley Scott directed 1984 Apple commercial. And they basically modified that commercial and parodied it.
This is the one that you've probably seen also parodied on like The Simpsons, where
it's everywhere. You've seen it before, even if you have no idea what it is. It is one of the most iconic commercials of all time.
The Big Brother style projected figure talking to a crowd of people who are staring with mouths agape, and then someone running with a sledgehammer, being chased by fascist police, and then they throw the sledgehammer. In this case, it's a big unicorn pickaxe because that's what Fortnite is, through the TV, and then some text appears about how you're fighting the good fight. I mean, it includes
hashtag free Fortnite.
Fuck off. I like literally don't. I cannot understand the place you're in 2020 to say, join the fight to stop 2020 from becoming 1984, about you not getting to make enough money from your video game.
Yeah, like a story of Orwellian propaganda is how? What's the parallel?
What's the parallel? It's that we don't make enough money. And I say that just to be clear. Like, I think if you wanted to like pin me down to it, I am, of course, I think I am on Epic's side of this legal battle, obviously.
Like, there are two things to be true,
shut up, nerd. Like, stop self-centering yourself. Stop painting yourself as a protagonist in a battle. And I understand that this is part of that fight is about trying to win public appeal.
If they can't win in the courts, if they can't win in the regulators, they're hoping through the court of public opinion will force Apple to change policy, which like that's where you get that's where I see how some of this stuff happens. I just strongly, there is not many examples of weaponizing gamers that has gone well, and I don't know that like the biggest game in the world choosing to like weaponize gamers, whether even that even works. I don't know if the hashtag Free Fortnite's going to do anything.
This is honestly what my biggest question though are they in it to eventually get that policy changed or to cut a deal? Will they say the second that Apple says you can, but we're not changing our policy, is that enough for Epic at that point for them? Depends
on how good that deal is, right?
Right.
Well, if they followed so Apple basically has like two versions of a deal. Like they will cut the 30 to 15% for certain big players, right? So in order to get Amazon Prime Video on like Apple TV and other marketplaces, they cut it to 15%. I believe Netflix for a while was doing the 15% deal, and then Netflix at some point was like, yeah, we're good. People want Netflix enough that they will go to a browser, sign up, and then go into our app, and we're just not going to deal with Apple anymore. And so, but what's like critical about, so I emailed Epic to ask like, hey, if Apple or Google was to offer 1585 split, would Epic take that, and would that satisfy them? No response. I understand what you're saying, Kato, that like, will they just take the sweetheart deal that other big companies get offered? I do feel that in this case, it's more all or nothing, because it's hard for me to imagine Apple, who is like they poked them in the eye on purpose, and so I could see like Apple also has trillions, more than enough money to let Fortnite slide to the side for a lengthy period of time, and it's not going to touch their bottom line whatsoever. So I think this is part of a longer gambit from and a bigger one from Epic, in which they look at the U.S. is like Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google, like the heads executives were hauled in front of Congress for like all told like a pretty decent sort of like in turn like what we expect from congressional oversight hearings. It at least shows there is evidence in the water that both parties are interested in regulating tech, like for to what ends and for what reasons are pretty different. But I do think there is a scenario where in the next 5 years, there's like regulation coming for somebody in Silicon Valley. And in the EU, where it's like much easier for this stuff to actually go through, there is already an antitrust investigation into the App Store specifically that was instigated over the years by places like Spotify that made the point that when things like Apple Music were introduced, when you ask Siri to play a song, you couldn't until recently. Now when you say, hey, whatever, like play blank, you have to add on Spotify, which is what I do constantly. Cause like almost as a point, I'm like, Apple Music would be easier. And it has all the same music, but it's like, we just have the family plan on Spotify. And so I'm always saying on Spotify, to the point where my daughter, when she requests things from something in the house, she knows to say on Spotify when she asks for like Cinderella or something. So they're like, there has been movement, and that's evidence of what Epic is trying to do, where Spotify made a fuss in the European Union. Regulators started looking into Apple, and I don't even think that there was antitrust regulation applied to Apple to get things like this year in iOS 14, you'll be able to just switch Spotify to your default music player. And that's just happening because Apple's like, yo, okay, fine. Right. We'll just do this. And I ultimately think that's what Apple is counting on, or what Epic is counting on, is that they're going to, if you go reach just before the Apple's big developer conference this past June, there was this whole kerfuffle over this app, Hey, which is an email program that wanted to do something very similar to this. They're like, there's a lot of blood in the water with Apple and its App Store. And I think Epic looked at this moment and said, aha, like now is the time to throw up a fuss about it, because they think that Apple is just going to throw up their hands and probably just give everyone an 85-15 split. Because if they cut, what Apple can't do is they realistically, for what all their growth is tied to what's called services, which is making money off of data storage and Apple News and Apple Music and Apple TV Plus. And if you read this is all estimates from places like Sensor Tower and other analytical firms, but Apple's services is largely in the App Store, and the money they make largely in the App Store is games. And the games they make the most money on are gambling adjacent or games like Fortnite, games that are heavily tied to intense microtransaction transactions with players. And so if you suddenly allow Epic, like let's say they didn't even, it's not even 85-15. It's like, yeah, it's fine. You know what, Fortnite, you're allowed to go around, do your own payment system. Well, then every other big, Clash of Clans and everyone else is going to, yeah, we're gonna do that too. And that was going to suddenly vastly undercut one of like their major revenue sources, or at least sources of growth currently.
What stops us from seeing the Steam solution, which was we're going to give
Start your own store?
Huh?
Start your own store.
Oh, no.
That's what they proposed in the lawsuit.
No. What Valve has done with big publishers and big games in response after Epic, the Epic Game Store launch, was they said, okay, we're going to do a special deal for any games that bring in X revenue. We're going to start giving a better deal to the games that are making more than that. Which was like
when I've read
right?
critics of Apple, or like ways they could handle that, so like that would be one version of it. It was like, hey, for under X amount of dollars, one deal under X amount of dollars, another deal. Like that's what the Unreal Engine does.
Exactly. So at that point, Apple doesn't have to give small developers anything. All they're doing is giving their big partners slightly more,
which is how Steam works, if what I understand, right? Whereas like indie
yes.
Yeah, indie developers, have to pay the higher royalty split, and then like Activision, etc., like they come in the gate not having to do anything. They're just big.
Yes.
And Steam just says, hey, fine, actually your split can be better.
Just to be as clear as possible, the way that works now at Valve is 30% of all games on Steam, with exceptions made for some smaller developers in the Steam Direct program. And then after you make $10 million, from your $10 million to $50 million thing, that cut goes to 25%, and then for every sale after 50 million, Steam only takes 20%, which is like really
seems weird. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Shouldn't you like take more as you're making more money like that?
Well, the idea there is you already made us this much money. Don't worry about it. Here, you get to make more when you're making more. It sucks, dude. I'm not a fan.
I just feel like the smaller developers who are working on like smaller margins seems like in the I mean, it's all kind of fucked, and I think all the numbers, like the baseline should just be lower across the board.
Yes.
Like it's things like Steam, app stores, like the apps, they are the idea they should take nothing, I think is both unrealistic and silly. But it does seem like, hey, scrappy developer that like used all their savings. Seems like maybe they could use like the 20-80 split. And as Kyle Orland pointed out in a piece at ours, part of what's lost in all this is they're pointing, Epic's pointing, Fortnite at Apple and Google, but the 20% discount on V-Bucks was also applied to every other platform that Fortnite is on, which is a PlayStation, an Xbox, and a Switch. And you know what all those platforms do? They charge 30% of their developers on transactions when they're listed. And nowhere is that mentioned. Apparently in Epic's lawsuit, they try to make a distinction where like a console is not a computer, and a phone and tablets are like closer to pure computers, in which they look at like a Mac, where it's like a Mac does have an app store, but also you could install whatever software you like, and that a console isn't that. And so they're willing to accept the royalty split on consoles, but not willing to entertain it on mobile computing devices because they're closer to computers than dedicated. But like consoles have apps, like there's like no reason that they couldn't. I mean, it seems, I don't know. It seems my end of it is that they see weakness with Apple and are just choosing to exploit it at this particular time. And maybe that'll. I'm not sharing Epic, but I do. If you have to pick a side, they are right in this particular instance, and this would benefit a lot of people and put a lot of money in the pockets of developers that could really use it. So it's not like I'm excited for Epic, but sometimes you need like a bigger player to. Sometimes just enemy of my enemy is my friend, and this is a situation where if Epic got what they wanted and it was across the board, like a lot of people would be better off for it.
Rob, you have been leaning forward and back in agitated exhaustion during this whole conversation. How you doing?
Okay, so there's some things I'm just a little tired of, and one of them is flattening the distinction between companies that are worth 20 billion versus companies that are worth $1 trillion. Like,
I think they're almost at 2 trillion.
That's correct. But Alphabet is, I think, near $1 trillion. But the point is that, you know, those infographics where people are talking about, people don't know how much $1 billion is, right?
Yeah.
Like, people don't understand the wealth of billionaires. I'm seeing a similar thing play out here with $1 trillion companies versus like large, really successful, well-heeled $1 billion companies. Epic does not have market power in the way a Google, Alphabet, or Apple has market power. Like, the scale actually does matter here. And I'm a little bit resistant to the notion that we should be flattening it into this, it's all just billionaire capitalist assholes, pox on both their houses. I think one of the things that we'd be looking for here is that if Epic does see this fight through to the end and gets a positive action in the courts to begin moving us toward a legal framework where antitrust litigation stands a chance of being successful, even if it's via a few really small avenues of attack, that is still probably moving us toward a healthier and less rigged economy. And if the door cracks open for the $20 billion companies, who knows? Could be down the road it's cracked open for the $1 million companies. It could be cracked open, just a matter of principle, for the little guys. I don't know, but I think the scale matters. And I think it is a little bit disingenuous to look at an Apple versus Epic and say, just two big gaming companies. If you think Apple's like a gaming company, like you're off base. Like that's not what their business is.
I'm skeptical of this for two reasons. The first is that the project is #free Fortnite. It's not the antitrust lawsuit by itself. It's not we're going to send money into this. They're trying to win a war of public opinion, which to me means the real project there is, at the end of the day, the antitrust case has nothing to do with public opinion. That'll be done in the courts. The judge will not see all of the gamers angry on behalf of Fortnite and say, you know what?
I saw this was trending.
I saw it, right, exactly. Which to me suggests that the final outcome is really about Epic's bottom line, not about whether or not they win that case. And this is why I'm if I had to put my chips somewhere, it would be that they would take a sweetheart deal, that they would want, if they get something that was good enough for them, they would get out of this race, because that is why they're putting public pressure on Apple to push Apple to make them an offer. The second thing is, the way capitalism works is by saying, look, the system works. And one of the ways that they do that is one of the ways that the system does that is by generating examples by which you can look as a member of the public who has no access to these levers, of the levers of power working in favor of the little guy. But the little guy is almost always someone who is themselves an exception. You produce outcomes that make you think that the system works, and then that reproduces belief in the system, right? In this case, yes, it might become true that $20 billion companies gain the ability to fight $1 trillion companies. Is that a good thing in the all around? Yes, but that does not mean that it will then that ability will trickle down to the person who makes $100,000 a year as an indie developer going against a $1 trillion company, for instance, or a $1 billion company, for instance. That like, when you say that there is a difference there is, but the other half of that difference is we are as far away from that $20 billion company as that $20 billion company is away from that, or we are not as far away. We're further away, right? That once you hit a certain amount of capital, you do gain access to new language and new verbs by which you can operate in the world. Independent developers don't have big lawyer money. And so if you can pay the cover to get access to the legal system in that way, you certainly then have extra flexibility and certain things made available to you. And again, these examples are used again and again in capitalism by which, or as a way to shore up the general belief that the system functions. And it all while not actually changing the bottom line. So yes, if it is the case that that this happens, maybe you do end up seeing other big challenges to other corporate monopolies. But those my guess is that those challenges will again be primarily focused on getting these companies a sweetheart deal or shifting a number a little bit, going from 30% to 20%, which is a net good. But I'm not going to cheer for Epic as they do it or buy into the belief that what they're doing is somehow selfless. And I'm certainly not going to like fill my Twitter feed with like rousing pro-gamer propaganda the way that so many people in our industry did when this stuff was announced.
No, but I think reflexive cynicism is lazy in its own way. Like, I've been thinking the whole weekend about that line of argument, the notion that, to a degree, the argument against these sort of incremental, very like marginal reforms you see on the edges of capitalism and regulatory frameworks is that they do diminish the urgency for the sort of deep-seated overhaul of these systems that we need, right? And I'm sympathetic to that. On the other hand, right now, I don't see a lot of viable political avenues for overhauling these systems like active right now through the political structures that exist right now. So I'm happy to see how this thread plays out.
Yeah, totally.
And I don't think I don't think wishing for its success necessarily ends up serving the cause of capitalism unless people stop paying attention and decide, well, Apple got schooled in the courts.
The thing that they're already doing, that's the thing that they're doing already. That's the thing I'm saying, is that like the way that this plays out again and again and again is somewhat, once you pick a side in something like this with that degree of ambivalence about your own situation, not about suddenly you've displaced your own class position with the class position of your brand. And at that point, you do end up feeling relieved when the brand wins. It's not cynicism. It's like it's historical analysis of how this has happened again and again. You get a dog in the fight, the dog wins. You don't worry so much about your bottom line. And I think that there's a degree to which I'm not an accelerationist, right? I'm not like, oh, I can't fucking wait until we have to keep throwing, money into capital until capital blows up so much that all of the contradictions really do just explode, and in order to do that, I'm going to become a super capitalist. Like, that's just not who I am, and that's a pretty bad caricature that I've just given of accelerationism. So if you're an accelerationist out there, I know that I did that. But the at the same time, what I don't want to do is assume that the small gains that can come through tiny, instances like this inside of a broad system, that those are somehow endemic of trends towards change. When historically they have been outliers, and while the system has actually moved towards increasing inequality. And those gains, and I'm not saying that those gains aren't meaningful, right? Like there have been times when you have action that benefits a lot of people, and that benefit is great. But if I have a platform, the thing I want to say on that platform is, don't confuse that short-term benefit or that specific benefit that targets particular groups inside of a system that's oppressive and exploitative as that system becoming less exploitative generally, so much as that system investing in its ability to continue being exploitative indefinitely. That's the system.
I think the history of antitrust is interesting because it used to be pretty far the other direction.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
And it's actually a relatively recent legal counter-revolution that really began diminishing our protections from monopoly and
in our lifetimes. Like, it's one of the big changes legally in our lifetimes.
Right. And so there is a part of me where, like, I was sort of too young to see that part of the legal framework unravel. I didn't know what it meant as it was unraveling. But I do look at this and I'm like, I don't know what it would look like if you had a generation, and certainly the way national politics and the courts are right now, we're probably still a long way away from that. But I don't know what it looks like to begin seeing a functionally like regulated marketplace. Like, because my entire life has been the story of seeing the threads of that be ripped apart. And I will say, one of the things I was thinking a lot about this weekend was like, is the legacy of Glass-Steagall a net positive, right? Like, Glass-Steagall, its great success was making people think Glass-Steagall wasn't necessary to manage finance, right? Wasn't necessary to keep savings banks away from investment banks and keep those lines of business from crossing.
And we saw where that went.
Right, but on the other hand, was Glass-Steagall the mistake, or was complacency, the process of politics, the mistake? Right, where we just no system is going to survive if people stop paying attention to these issues and remembering why fences were put up. Right, and I think for me that's where I come down a little bit on this, which is I share your concerns, but also I think fundamentally it behooves us in the shambolic ruins of democracy to care about this stuff, right? And continue feeling urgency about the way the rules are being adjudicated and the economic framework in which we exist.
Yeah, I think we agree on that. Like, I just want to be clear. I'm not saying put your head in the ground because the Titans are fighting and you just should cover your head and not watch. Please watch. But for me, it's like, make sure that you understand what the circumstances are, what's at stake, what your class position is in this, not without letting it, like, without being sublimated into some belief that, like, this does open the door for you, or this proves that your own exploitation isn't happening because, look, here is an example of it going right. As long as you're paying attention to what these outcomes actually mean for these stakeholders, like, I think that's completely the right call.
Here's a question for you guys, though. Are they really weaponizing kids? Like, because I look at the ad, and I'm like, did that resonate with kids?
No, I think they're bad at it, but that's their attempt. The goal is to get hashtag Fortnite
I think that was for politicians. I think you have to be, you're either a fucking tech nerd who's like, Pirates of Silicon Valley is my favorite fucking movie, man. Double feature Pirates of Silicon Valley and Steve Jobs. Let's do it.
Hey, go read write-ups of Tim Sweeney's politics, and you can see an immediate through line to why someone like him would be like, yes, the 1984 ad that's very clever, and it falls apart immediately upon any sort of like real scrutiny of the politics is trying to unpack. That feels, I mean, yeah, maybe it's aimed at.
I think it was aimed at journalists trying to sneak in a story at 4 p.m. on a Friday, or if it was a Thursday, not a Friday. But it was like Thursday. It's catnip to some degree. It's like, whoa, look, they're doing the clever. Thing.
It's just the actual thing they presented was terrible.
Right.
But the whole when you look back at everything that occurred throughout that day, even though it quickly became clear that this was a piece of performance art to a certain degree, when's the last time we've seen, like, it was pretty, like, I can pick apart some of their aims and some of the consequences of that, but I to my knowledge cannot remember the last time I've seen something play out like that. It was,
no, I absolutely enjoyed the wrestling of
the
it.
Spectacle.
You know what I mean? Like, it absolutely was.
You called it a work.
I did call it a work. It was a work. I did immediately. I said this. It was as soon as the ad went up for the 1984 thing. I was like, oh, this is a work. And it's a great gimmick. And it's you know what? Listen. That's the amazing thing of Tim Sweeney coming out and revealing an NWO shirt underneath. Like, all right, let's go. I'm down. But that doesn't mean that at the same time, again, it's like recognizing it as a work means then evaluating it on that level and not evaluating it on the level of everyone here is being completely sincere. Not that there is no sincerity.
And that's the issue with once it went out, seeing certain members of the gaming community immediately start using that hashtag. Like, come the fuck on. Like, what do you don't? I
don't want to read other tweets. I'm not going to go down this road, but just know that
we're not going to do this. We're going to do the work yourself. You know.
I'm just saying,
some of it got deleted.
Checking out that hashtag, and it did not seem like the youths have joined the revolution. It does not seem like
corny
children.
As shit because they don't get the reference. They think it's corny as shit, and all of them want their parents to have jobs again. Like, it's not
right.
Hashtag free Fortnite feels like.
Also, what are the kids supposed to do? There is no actual call to action in the video.
Correct.
There's not like. You're not calling your congressman. You're like, what do you do? Like,
Sunrise Movement, but for IAPs.
Like, what do you? But that's what I mean. Like, they're almost surely on a family account on this app store. So it's like the parents' credit card is like what is who are they complaining to? Are they adding Apple on Twitter? The kids don't use Twitter.
But this is the thing. Like, that ad is entirely
debut it on TikTok.
Yeah, TikTok hashtag free Fortnite.
That ad is entirely about Xers and boomers who, like, care about the mystique of Apple. And, like, I genuinely think that unless they were truly delusional, they knew that was not going to resonate with kids, but that wasn't the point. The point was to go to like people in journalism and people who are considered tech savvy on Capitol Hill by the very loose standards of tech literacy on Capitol Hill, and to point out to them that, like, hey, Apple used to be cool. Apple used to be positioning itself as an innovator against abusive, like, would-be monopolies, and now they're just another rent-seeking monopoly. And I think that's the only real message of it. If it was meant to, like, bring the kids out in the streets, didn't seem to work.
On TikTok, some of the trending hashtags right now. Action lines, 6.7 million views. Rocking in college, 17.5 million views. I say this to establish a baseline.
Yeah.
Free Fortnite, not technically on the trending list right now, but 9.6 million views.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah. So it's maybe that they're using a different platform.
Yeah. I've linked to those hashtags for y'all to peruse at your own
I'll have to
pleasure.
watch some of these later.
Some of it is just Fortnite videos.
Yeah. Yes, that's the thing.
You know,
it doesn't actually say anything in the video about it, but it's using the hashtag, therefore making it seem like there's a lot of people talking about it.
Exactly. It is very funny. This is completely unrelated, but there was I was watching a video of Fortnite, or with Fortnite came up briefly with someone else, and they're like, "Is Aquaman in Fortnite now?"
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Aquaman's in Fortnite now. You could be Aquaman, or you could be like Psylocke. You know, it's all in there now. Fortnite is just
Psylocke.
Yeah, Psylocke's in there now. They added. I looked up all the crossovers for Fortnite recently. There's a great wiki called the Crossover Wiki that includes
that's a very good
April 17th. I almost don't believe this, and if this is fake, it's the best troll I've ever seen on a Wikipedia. This is some real wax house baby shit. April 17th, 2020, there was an X-Force crossover where you got skins for Cable, Psylocke, and Domino. Three real Marvel classics.
My faves.
Wow.
No, these seem to be real. Who in 2020 is like, I gotta play Cable and Domino? Domino is hot shit right now. There was not like an X-Force movie I missed, right?
They were
Domino's in
so they're
one of those what's it called? The guy with the red suit, Deadpool's. Yeah.
Was she in a Deadpool? She was in a Deadpool.
Yeah, and Deadpool 2 before the sale happened, Disney was like working towards an
X-Force thing. Okay, and Deadpool was Deadpool was a playable character in Fortnite April 3rd, 2020. So that was like the lead in, and then boom, after that was
Psylocke was also in the last like X-Men movie, right?
That makes sense. Yeah, almost certainly, right? And I think Cable was in
that's the one that Olivia Munn
played,
yes,
right? That was who. Yeah.
Go. She had some.
And Cable was also in that same movie that Domino was in.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, Josh Brolin. He got to be Thanos and
was he in Cable? Wow! Shout out to Josh Brolin.
He was good. Deadpool 2 is a bad movie. Deadpool 1 is like pretty good for like but he's good in it.
Okay.
I'm hearing us go down this Marvel.
I know we gotta stop.
I'm closing.
We gotta take a break.
We're gonna take a break
with my hammer. I gotta save Patrick from this. Patrick, you can be free.
Let's talk about Lovecraft Country. I'll do that for another 45 minutes.
Yeah, do that next time. We should. All right, we'll be right back. We'll talk about video games after this. All right, we're back. We didn't really go anywhere. We kind of talked through what we normally we go like, let's go to a break, and then there's at least either someone takes a break or there's like a 5-second quiet moment. We just talked all through it. Kato, you deal with that.
Whatever. That's going in the back somewhere.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Rob, how are our skies these days? How beautiful are they? How beautiful is the world from a higher perspective?
Forgot what you were talking about and thought you were asking him, like, how's the smog level out there, you know?
How's the
like,
smog
how's
level
pollution
in Mass,
doing?
in Lowell,
Are we all
Mass?
right?
The Eco Corner with Rob Zacny.
Is the Earth
The virus is healing.
the way the viral memes say?
God, what's the name of Steve Martin's character in LA Story? Harrison Telemacher?
That sounds like it could be right.
Yeah. The wiggy weatherman? Yeah. So I have been flying the friendly skies, as it were. I've been playing Microsoft Flight Simulator, and it is indeed an impressive and very pretty game. It is also the game that, more than anything I've played, has just punted my computer like all around this apartment.
Wow.
It's, like this was the, but here's the thing, like probably it is that I've got a quad core processor, so it's a bit out of date at like 4200
what are you doing, Rob?
megahertz. But the thing about it is, I'm not convinced that's entirely the problem, because everything seems to be about like long load times. And to give you to let you here's what you do in Microsoft Flight Simulator. As you know, the hook is that it's basically powered by Bing Maps, right? Like there have been various versions of this, like use Google Maps and fly around the globe. This is the actual flight sim version of that, right? It is a credible like flight sim model, but it is tied to Bing satellite maps of the entire world. And that means that, like, as opposed to old flight sims where there were regions you could fly around in, you know, like the early flight sims when I was growing up, like Chicago was really well detailed, right? Like you could take off at Meigs Field, land at Midway, etc. Like that was a detailed part of the world. Other parts of the world just didn't exist. This, you can like literally go anywhere, and to a degree that is genuinely surprising. So I was like, let's see how good this is. I started flying around regional airports in Michigan because I know a bunch of them, just because of some family vacations.
Can we back up, though? My favorite part of this experience of you playing this game was, I believe, on Friday afternoon, you declared in Slack, time to sit down and play some Flight Simulator. When you like hit the install button and then realized that you were then facing like 150 gigabytes.
Patrick, it had installed. It had installed the entire morning.
What?
So I had been like, woo, Flight Simulator, it's done. Hit that launcher. And then it was like, great. Just a quick 100 gigabyte download. And by the way, those gigs are going to come more slowly through whatever, like through the app, than you got the executable file for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So I was just sitting there, like, it was doing it in increments of 0.01%, watching it tick up. And I was like, I can't, like, and you know how that completely
Rob's
breaks
all
your
the way
brain?
through the 6-pack and we're at 30%.
Patrick, I was sitting there on my couch with
when you
my
typed this, I had the image in my head and my heart broke because I knew you had probably done so much work to just get yourself. Look at him!
I was sitting on my couch with these fucking atrocities on my lap.
Rob is holding up.
Hold that back
hold those up, please. Yeah, can we get those again? Connor, you got it.
Again?
Please. Thank
And
you.
the award goes to...
So I was like literally all dressed up to go flying. Like had those in my
ready
lap,
to go to the flight sim
go.
prom.
And then it was like, we'll be ready to play in a few minutes. 100 gigabytes.
Delayed on the runway. You're in your seat. You're ready to take off.
So, and it was just one of those things where, you know, like you're really, this is how I'm going to spend my afternoon.
Yeah.
And then the plans change.
Yeah.
And it just completely derails you in a really
Sours your
profound and
mood.
weird way
Yeah.
that you can't fully like justify to anyone. Like, I can't explain to you why it ruined my day. It just did.
No, that makes sense.
No,
I was just doing laps through my Netflix queue. Like, what could kill this 90 minutes that I've got to kill? That doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good. That's too long. Okay, now I've only got to kill 80 minutes.
Yeah, if I keep doing this, I'll only have to kill 10 minutes, and then I can just watch something on YouTube.
So then, in another cruel twist of fate, so this is the first time I busted out the Cytec Rhino in about 3 years, maybe. That is what is called a HOTAS.
Yes.
Hands-on throttle and stick. And it's cool. It's got a really fussy joystick and an entire throttle with a lever and a million buttons. But a lot of times, the expectation with like some sim equipment is that popular stuff like a Cytec stick will have a preload associated with it. There's a configuration, like the game recognizes, hey, this is what you're using. Here's what we figured are recommended settings for that. I start the game and it's like, what the hell is that? And it like it knows what it is. It's like, I say you got a Cytec. Okay. It doesn't do anything. You want it to do something? And I was like, I would like it to do something.
With a plane, probably.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, you can create a custom control configuration for it. And I was like, okay, cool. So where are like the basic commands? Open up like, okay, what are some unassigned commands?
Thinking that you would find
tiered
right
menus.
Oh.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And in 2 weeks, there will probably be a file. Or when this is out? This is out tomorrow. So like tomorrow night, someone will have built their ideal controller config.
But it'll be too late for me. So I was just going through. So I went into flight school where you go through virtual training, and just as things were coming up, I was like, okay, that seems like it's gonna be a useful thing. Okay, trim. I will add the trim controls to this knob on the throttle. But eventually, I did get to go flying, and I discovered that the game is really hardware intensive. But again, like, probably there's some CPU bottling going on, but like I've got a really serious video card, and I put this on like a brand new like solid state drive, the NVMe style SSDs, which is sort of the newer configuration of SSD. So like the failure points aren't that many with this. It had to have been the CPU, but like it ran shockingly badly. Like I say in the thing I wrote for the site today, like it was serious flashbacks to like when you realize your 486 was now living in a Pentium world and it just didn't cut it anymore. It was kind of that feeling, but the weird thing was, I think a lot of it is because the game it takes forever to load because it is pulling in all this map data that's not on your PC. It's not building it off like locally stored files. It's going to Bing and being like, okay, Rob wants to fly around New England for some reason. So I need all the high-res satellite imagery. You got to New England.
So does that mean there's like a boundary box of like what you like once you're in the air, like you can't go past a certain point because it's only pulled in a certain amount of map data?
You don't feel it load. That's the thing. Is like, so you'll have, this is my theory. Once it had loaded, it would start to perform really well. And I was like, okay, actually, I guess I can run this at pretty decent detail settings. And that would work for a while, but then you'd fly and then you just like hit a point and it's like, okay, time for performance to like briefly crater. I assume because I had just flown in a weird angle where the game hadn't sort of assembled the track in front of me and had to take a beat and just like hoover up another chunk of data and like build the world in front of me. However, the payoff for that is it's kind of absurd how detailed this is. Like again, I'm going around like regional airports in Michigan that like there's no reason anybody should know unless you like hanging out in Charlevoix in the summer, which it's a beautiful town. You should check it out. But it was weird seeing that because it's not like a perfect 1-to-1 rendition of it, but like it is recognizably the place, right? Like including little quirks about the way so at that airport, unlike a lot of other airports, you don't make a long straight approach to the runway. I don't know why. My partner thinks it's because there were some noise complaints. And so what planes have to do is they basically fly and then they make like a hard bootleg left turn and just fall like a fucking stone onto the runway. And that's how they land.
That's
and
terrifying.
This was the second place I went to go for a landing after like qualifying as a pilot and like learning how to land the plane. And so the very first place I went immediately discarded all the things I'd been taught about how to land a plane. And it's like, okay, so now...
But they did it. That's awesome. The fact that is the way it was. You know what I mean? That quirk of the real place is fantastic.
Austin, you know how like there's that like kamikaze dive bomb in the Newark airport? Like it's kind of that. Like you will do that where it's like, okay, got to clear these smoke stacks. And
listen, New Jersey is a beautiful state.
You just watch the wings caress the top of the smokestacks, and then you just like fall like a leaf onto the runway. It's great. But yeah, so it is really impressive in that sense. But the trade-off is in places it just doesn't look very convincing at all. Cities, the game doesn't really, however it's building the locations, it doesn't know what to do with like glass and steel in cities. And so it just renders all of it as like really dingy, like gray brutalist structures, including buildings that are like famously like glass and reflective. Like Boston has.
So you're saying it's a better world.
Yeah, yeah, you probably love it. But it's incredible, like seeing all this detail. The toll that you pay is just, it takes a long time to load into a mission, and even once it loads you, you shouldn't actually start doing anything because it's lying. It's like, oh yeah, you're ready to take off, and you're like, great, let me move the camera, and it's like, okay, hold on, you move the camera.
Why'd you do that? Why'd you go and do that?
Give me 2 or 3 minutes, and then we can do something. But once you're actually around there flying, like it's really impressive. Like it's ridiculous. This is probably, it's been a while since I've flown anything like this. I haven't played a game with like a fully functional virtual cockpit in ages, but that's kind of what you're dealing with in this game, where like you're looking around the cockpit of the plane and it's like a 1-to-1 recreation of the real thing. And if you move your mouse cursor around, all the knobs and switches for the most part actually do shit in that cockpit. And so like if you're like, I want to learn how to fly a 747. It seems like you could learn to fly a 747 in this game. Me, I left the aids on because I just want to fly among the clouds. That's where I belong. And I was rewarded for that.
You were talking about the cities. The thing that cities sometimes remind me of from looking at footage and stuff is either of you or any of you do the Google like VR, like the Google Maps VR app, Google World, Google Earth, whatever it's called.
I've heard it's really neat.
It's really neat, and
but
part of why it's so neat is that it's just absolutely broken with buildings and like ground structures, because it doesn't know what their geometries are and it guesses, and so everything is kind of like stretched and angular. It's kind of like an incredible nightmare. And some of the cities have that vibe where it's like, oh, this map data has been flattened. This was a baseball field, but here it's a flat JPEG. Oh, this was supposed to be a set of buildings that have kind of angled and then flat roofs, but you just kept the angle going, and now it's just it's like a neighborhood filled with spires. And that stuff is like almost broken in an interesting way to me, to the degree that I'm guessing Rob, it never took you out of the experience in the way that was like, well, this fucking game sucks. That's not what buildings look like.
Well, it's weird. Like, so taking off from Boston, it's like you're in the uncanny valley of flight, right? It's like, okay, so if I were an airline pilot in limbo, this is what it would be like, right? Like I'm not alive anymore. I died somewhere along the line, and now I'm a pilot. And I'm just ferrying souls around New England. And there's what's left of Boston. There's the sort of the phantasmagorical version of Boston that we have, and so it doesn't necessarily take you out of it, but it gives the game kind of a weird aesthetic quality that, I don't know. It's distinctive, and probably over time will be softened, right? Like probably over time they're going to do just enough like bespoke models to like fix this up. On the other hand, so like places like Boston, it doesn't show up in like to great effect. But then like I flew to my hometown and I was like, oh, like there's downtown. Like there literally are all the buildings I recognize, and they look right, including little details about like where groves of trees are planted and where they sort of like encroach on roof lines. It's weird. And so it's this bizarre thing where it's a very uneven experience. Like the things you might think, oh, surely the game would know what this looks like. This is a popular location. It would get it. It might not. But then you go to places where there's no reason the game should be like that lovingly rendered, and you'll be like, yep, that's just what this is. I know this, and that is what it looks like if you're flying over it.
How many times are we going to see Twitch people dox themselves using this game?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, that's my house.
Hey, that's my... Oh, y'all want to see my house? This is where I live, at this street. Don't... Please, if you're going to stream this game, be careful about it, just in case.
It seems like that would hit your CPU even harder.
Seems like you're getting too close. I guess one of the things I would love to hear just a little bit about here is just like game structure, like is there a meta structure? Are you just choosing an aircraft location and like a run basically, or are you saying like, okay, I want to fly from JFK to Heathrow and then like in this plane in these conditions, etc. And then is it building anything around that choice, or is it just kind of a sandbox in that way?
It's mostly a sandbox, which has always been what Flight Simulator has been.
Absolutely.
This has always been... When I was a kid, I didn't get it. I didn't know why this was popular when I was like, I could play European Air War and like literally like dive on a formation of Heinkel bombers with a Spitfire and just like fuck them up. And that's awesome because the plane is cool and it has guns. So it's better.
So it's better.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't hear. It's called European Air War.
Yeah, exactly. So I did.
Dad.
I didn't totally. I didn't totally get it back in the day, but this has always been what the civil aviation sims have been. It's been about just sort of enjoying flight and also enjoying the proceduralism of flight. I think So there's the scene at the end of Rush, which is an F1 movie, where Niki Lauda's character explains why he got into piloting. And he's like, it's just because of the discipline. It's all the romance of flight. It's all bullshit. It's all like, look at your instruments. Here are the rules. Here are your procedures. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what these games have always offered at the highest end. People turning off the aids, trying to do things more and more by the book for whatever that aircraft class is. And there is a lot of satisfaction and reward that comes from doing all that. And so I think for a lot of people, a lot of the game is going to be, you create custom flights where you're like, I'm going to go from here, I'm going to fly here, and then I'm going to land over here. And I'm going to do it all on a snowy evening in February. And it's going to be sunset and it's going to be beautiful. And that's cool. Like being able to do that, flying through, thunderstorms, in New Hampshire was really cool. Like flying over the, Adirondacks in like driving rain was genuinely scary and cool, and like felt surprisingly tense because the plane just being buffeted by wind. However, there are challenges that you can undertake, and they seem to. It's kind of a live game situation where it looks to me like their plan is to do this maybe weekly, but there are basically navigation challenges.
Okay.
Where can you fly without like GPS, like can you like navigate using your tools from like point A to point B? You know, you're not going to have like a little like you can't hit M and see exactly where you are. Like you actually have to like figure out how you're going to like fly this journey.
The literal
Patrick was never seen again.
Yeah, exactly. Patrick lost in the clouds.
Oh, it's
Patrick
terrible.
Just went up and went, I'll just see if I go really high, it's kind of like a map.
Dude, it is amazing how quickly you realize that you lose all sense of like direction. Like you fly into a cloud and within 30 seconds you somehow pitch the plane outside because you're like, oh, I'm correcting for the wind. Like I'm keeping this thing straight and level. And then you come out of the cloud and like the ground is rushing toward you and you're like, I had no idea I did that. And so you learn like, just watch your instruments. And after a point, you're just like not flying. You're not looking out the window. You're just like staring at the artificial horizon being like, okay, cool. Gotta touch it a little back to the right.
Love it.
The other challenge you can do is like basically I think it's like bush pilot challenges where it is basically fly long distances over like sparse terrain in like a really lightweight aircraft. And so like can you fly around for instance like long dark type shit, right? Like just the northern reaches of Alberta from like nowhere in particular to nothing much. Can you do it safely? So there's a bit of that as well. I haven't gotten into too much of that because I am also not a master navigator. I am not ready to take this on.
I see.
It's just a
few blocks away. Yeah, it's just a few blocks. We'll be right there. It's just around. It's a great little spot.
Yeah, just a couple of blocks.
I really want the
How
version
does it take
of
to
this.
fly a square?
It's just 2 squares away. The thing I really wish is, I don't wish, but like I was secretly hoping that there would be an almost Euro Truck Sim element, or not element, but like campaign mode here that starts you out with like a nothing little biplane that
it
lets
feels like
you
it could build to that. Like
Totally.
It makes sense to start with the audience that's an underserved, ignored. Like Microsoft owned this space. Yeah, like this is the thing they were doing in the 90s. Microsoft Flight Sim.
Yes.
Like was the same with Microsoft also was like made the best golf game. Lynx, right? Or wasn't that they were making one? There was Access, right? Didn't they get bought by Microsoft though?
I can't remember.
Anyway, but I remember it was of that era, and it makes more sense to start here. And then if it's popular, like like Rob mentioned, the challenges is like where you start to build. Like, then you would do you could see like a campaign mode that was like on Microsoft Game Pass like a year from now to like get people interested.
They do a decent job. For instance, when you go through training, you have a virtual instructor who's actually really engaging and charming and tells you like,
it's Drew Scanlon.
I was going to say, is it Drew Scanlon? Rob, I would pay good money to watch you and Drew Scanlon play this game together. That's all. Putting that out there.
Drew is dead to me after he did not express appropriate sympathy for the fact that the controls weren't mapped. He was like, "That's just flight sims."
That's.
And I'm like, I'm not here for that.
Wow,
Drew. Well, Drew's been in the fucking trenches, the flight sim trenches, doing shit. I know,
but some of us
actually got taught and knows how to fly.
Also knows how to fly a plane. Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, but like I don't want to have to go through dying in an A10 Warthog when I was trying to cold start an engine wrong. I don't need to go through that.
That happened?
I just want
all-time good giant bomb clip. All-time good giant bomb clip is a Drew Scanlon, Dave Snyder joint. I forget which game that was, but just sitting on the runway trying to start a plane for like 30 minutes, and they're just about there. They're just about got it, and then just like brr, and just destroyed from some passing enemy warplane.
No, I do not think it was.
You don't think it was?
Literally,
they just blew up their. Oh my god!
Yeah.
That's great.
Literally, I think they just spooled. They could not bring an engine back down, and
it
so
kept spinning up, and then Great. I love it.
But yeah, so I think they showed some capacity to do some character development with the training, and to the point, like what you guys were both asking for was actually kind of done with a game called Take on Helicopters. Did this ever cross your radar?
I know the name because it's so idiosyncratic.
Okay, so Take on Helicopters is like the X-Wing Alliance.
Why wouldn't it be take
civil
off helicopters? Because helicopters take off. They don't take on. They take off.
Because then how else would you explain the pencil aesthetic?
You take them on. Like, are you ready?
I see.
Are you strong enough?
It feels like
a
threat.
Man?
Yeah. Let me tell you, I'm not. Have you seen a helicopter?
So here's the thing. What that game was you come home as literally, okay.
Already a great lead into a flight sim.
You come home after being discharged from the army following being shot down in Afghanistan. Like some shit went down in Afghanistan. And you come home to your family's helicopter company in Seattle and they're like, the
player takes on the role of a civilian helicopter pilot. Harry Larkin's aviation business has fallen on tough times. Built up over decades, it's now only days away from closure. His sons face an uncertain future, struggling to save the company their father spent his whole life building. Together, they must take on contracts and competitors. Together, they take on helicopters!
Dude, and so here's the fucking wild part, okay? It's corny as hell.
Take on helicopters DLC, Heinz.
Okay, well, we're probably jumping the shark at that point. Because that company, if the Larkin company's flying Heinz around, something's probably like gone. Like, is that the PMC expansion where it's like, well, Dad's company went under? Well,
it's from the.
I'm gonna go back to work.
Yeah.
It's from the Arma developers, though, right?
Yeah,
so,
that makes sense. So
is this basically? So I played. I didn't play any of Microsoft Flight Sim or any real flight simulators, but I was like really into Wing Commander and stuff like that in the 90s. And I got really into Simcopter specifically. Like I loved fucking Simcopter because it gave the experience of like the arcadey experience of like arcadey/sim experience of piloting a helicopter, but with like objectives. Like I was like going to help fight fires, and landing was like really difficult. So I got really into Simcopter for like a spell. But that's the closest I've ever gotten to like playing one of these games. But I liked it because it was the objective based thing. I'm not gonna be able to do the fly to JFK. Like I need like
you need a fire.
I need a terrorist to take over the plane at some point for this to work.
I go back to this game because I think I didn't appreciate it enough at the time how bold it was, and like genuinely I would kill for more games like this. Like Patrick, like what if I told you that there's a mission where you got to fly a Jerry Jones like figure around Seattle because he's thinking about acquiring a football team.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
You're just like sitting here listening to him like rattle off his big fancy man plans, and you're like, fuck this guy. Or you get to like go on missions where like you and your brother are like doing a rush delivery of like emergency equipment, but while you're on the radio, it's CB radio shit. You and your brother flying your separate helicopters, and you start getting to the bottom of like, hey man, why'd you leave the family? Like, yeah, I understood. Like, yeah, you felt called to serve or whatever, but we needed you here, man.
Whoa.
Like, Dad's not doing well. And I was here to deal with. So, like, prodigal son in a helicopter sim, like, that's what you're dealing with. It has one of the most harrowing fucking things I've ever experienced, by the way. There is this mission. You get a flashback to, like, what went down in Afghanistan. So,
oh my God.
You fly. Like,
I just want to play this with you, Rob. I don't know that I need to play this.
This is the hot new Waypoint Let's Play.
Our next live stream.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to know what's going to be on that schedule?
Take on helicopters.
Take on helicopters, because Rob is going to take it on for us.
There's this mission. You get to the bottom of like, okay, well, what happened in Afghanistan? And you're on like this milk run, like just ferrying like some supplies from like one base to like a forward fire base. Not supposed to encounter anything. You start taking like ground fire, and like all the game's prepared you for is like just doing civil aviation shit, like drop into a hover, lower the cargo winch. Right. And now you're in this flashback and you're just flying along your helicopter, and suddenly like rounds start exploding across your windscreen, and you like turn and your co-pilot is just fucking dead.
Oh my God.
And then Then you start getting the like alarm klaxons and the engine is on fire and you lose control of the chopper and you start having to do, the game has taught you how to like auto rotate and basically like you control a crash in a helicopter. Basically you try to just keep it in a flat spin and make it so that it lands and uses up all its energy, just like skittering across the ground rather than just exploding. So that happens. You like wake up in your helicopter. The only other member of your crew is like critically injured. You are given an M16. You start dragging this guy out of there, dude. Because it's an Arma game,
right? It's actually just Arma, right?
So out of nowhere, in the middle of this helicopter game, you are basically dragging a dude across Afghanistan while being hunted by the Taliban. And that's why you don't fly helicopters for the army anymore. And it's like
a good reason.
It's completely out of the blue. And it's like one of the most impressive like military game sequences I've ever seen because it's not in a military game. It's just this is what happened to you. It went bad. And now you don't ever want to do this stuff again.
God.
And like that's kind of what that game
incredible.
was.
Why didn't anyone talk to us about
Microsoft Flight Sim?
Fuck that.
We should take on helicopters. Give me that.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Take on Helicopters Week here at Waypoint.
I will say,
in this essay,
I underrated that game, I think, for another reason, which was that I didn't know enough about helicopters. And so I thought I was just really bad at the game, but it turns out there was a really bad bug. So I was like, landing on this game is impossible. Like the game's like, okay, get really low, drop into a hover, now just ease off on the power and gently touch the skids down. Every time you do that, the helicopter would start rocketing back and forth on its side at like blinding speed. The rotors would touch the ground and the thing would explode.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I'm just bad at like, this is tougher than carrier landing. Like, what is going on? Like, I'm just crap at this. So my only solution was to basically not get that low and cut power from like 20 feet up and just like land. And the game was like, you're really bad at landing helicopters. And I was like, the only way I know how. It turns out later they had to patch a ground effect bug, which was the rotor wash was way too strong, and so it was creating this like crazy strong pocket of air from your rotors that was causing your helicopter to skip as it got closer to the ground. And that was a bug that was in the version I played. And if I knew more about helicopters, I would have been like, this is fucked up. But instead I was like, I cannot take on helicopters. These are just you have to be a special man to pilot these beasts.
God, well, thank you for taking us into a world we did not know existed.
Click on this video at this time code that I have shared into our group chat.
Okay.
It's a Take on Helicopters time trial. People speed running.
Oh, speed running. Okay, are we counting me in or are we just sitting and play?
Ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, click.
Oh,
there's some wild Eurobeat. Oh! There's some wild Eurobeat playing in this helicopter. It's flying through rings, and everyone in the helicopter in business suits is bobbing their head along to these dance rhythms. This
presumably a headbanging mod. I can only.
What if it isn't? What if they just built it like this? This just might be the game. This is a bop. Wait, how are you gonna get through this one? There's a giant cruise ship.
Oh God,
this seems really hard. Oh, I would not like to fly. I would not like to take on helicopters. All right, I'm closing this.
Wait a second. Is this a Vocaloid?
This does sound like a Vocaloid, so probably not. Probably not in the game.
No.
Can you play that game with a controller? I was looking that up as I was doing this, and it doesn't have actual support, but it sounds like you can make it work.
Fake it. You can. Yeah. That makes sense. Geez, I feel like nothing else we say is going to live up to that segment.
No, I feel like we need to punt on everything else to another
everything
podcast.
Else is just kind of like trash.
Blasphemous is pretty good. We can talk about it another time.
But you punted on Blasphemous last time. You just want to say something nice about Blasphemous?
Yeah, the nice thing I'll say is that so Blasphemous, which is a to be reductive, not even reductive, it's because this is what it's trying to be, is a 2D Dark Souls. Traditionally, I've been dismissive of...
Hold on, this is the drop.
Still watching.
Rob is headbanging.
He's gonna watch that video all the way to the end.
Oh,
of,
yeah.
That time trial.
All right, so you're playing Last of Us again?
No.
Blasphemous.
Blasphemous.
Rob is now just listening to techno while recording the pod. I've mostly been dismissive when I see those trailers because it's like, cool, like, you know, do we need to do this? Like, I understand. I get it. Yeah, 2D Dark Souls. Like, and so mostly I've just been outright dismissive, even though a lot of the times they have art styles that seem, or even gameplay mechanics that seem potentially interesting. So I definitely watched the trailer for Blasphemous and was just like, yeah, I'm good. Like, I've played enough of these that don't feel good that I just became dismissive of the whole sort of attempt. And then there was a trailer for this new DLC for Blasphemous that came out a week or so ago, and just the art really captured me. I was like, damn, this looks fucking incredible. Just like real big screen filling creatures and backgrounds, a lot of Christian iconography, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna download this and see what's going on, and it's really good. Like, it's really fantastic. It's much more. It absolutely is Souls, where it's, you know, the checkpoints where you kneel and you heal, and the enemies come back, and you know, there's parrying. The parrying feels really good, but it's like way more Castlevania. Like, it's Dark Souls, but like way more also tilted in a Castlevania direction, where you've got, you know, a map that you're filling out, and, you know, you're coming back with different abilities. And so there's like there is a lot of Souls, but there's like so much Castlevania in here as well. And it's just so pretty. I'm going to be actually interviewing the developers tomorrow, because like this was a game made in Spain, in which it's pulling specifically from like Spanish like Christian,
Catholic, okay,
iconography. But when they released the game, they couldn't do anything more than an English dub, even though they're Spanish developers, because they couldn't afford it. And I was reading this article, I was reading this Reddit thread where one of the developers was explaining, like, yeah, like we have a lot of pride in Spain, and this game is like very, very, very Spanish. Like, you cannot separate that from this game at all. But that to appeal to the largest possible audience, they had to put in just English voiceovers. And so when they did the DLC, the game had been enough of a success that they could go back and finally do like a proper Spanish dub with, and the write-up I had was like this reader, this fan explaining why it's not just a good dub, it's like a spectacular dub. And so I'm talking to them about like being able to like come back and finally like, you know, do a thing for your game, even though you couldn't, for market reasons, for capitalist reasons, you had to appeal to the largest demographic. And so it's just kind of a cool story. And yeah, I could dig into it more when I get further into the game. I've played like three hours or so, but it's a really good. Not even one of those. I really haven't played anything like it. It's just it has Souls. It's got Castlevania. It's hard, but it's really satisfying and really beautiful. So I'm playing it on Switch, but it's on most of the platforms, I think, at this point. So I would recommend folks check it out.
Totally. Speaking of things that we're like dipping into that are like Souls plus blank, I just wanted to shout out, I revisited Remnant from the Ashes,
which was free on the Full Circle Epic Games Store.
It is free on the Epic. It still is, I think, right now. That game rules. Like
still on my list.
You should play this game. Like it is so good.
Were you this high on it before? I remember you praised it a lot.
I praised it a lot. I fell off of it.
Boiling it down to it rules.
I fell off of it because I was playing with a co-op friend, and then we just like stopped playing together. And the way the save system works is that you keep your character, but not world progress, because each world is a randomly generated seed that like combines. Like the very, very easy example of this is just like the bosses you get are different. There's like 2 different world bosses you could get in for each kind of like big level. There's a bunch of little smaller bosses. There's other little events and like encounters that may or may not trigger depending on your playthrough. So I went back to it and got back to where I was in my own save, and then in fact went further, and I'm like a full level and a half past where I was the last time I played. And it's just like consistently the enemy encounters are really good. The boss fights are really great. The basic just gameplay feel that I was certain at the time ruled, and it still does. And having spent time away from it, going back to it is like, I wish that there was even, if this game was Warframe, I would be gone. Like if Warframe felt the way Remnant does, if it was that style of like games as service, ongoing MMO style thing, Remnant would be the one that I would want to play because that's how good it feels to like move around the world. People don't remember, it's kind of like third-person action RPG with lots of Dark Souls influence around boss design, world design, even I'd say even some like aesthetic touchstones. And my favorite thing about this game is just, and it's been long enough now that I'm willing to talk a little bit more openly about it, is that there's a real bait and switch, which is the game is advertised as like a post-apocalyptic like shooter, and the first area is a ruined American city that's been taken over by these monsters called the Root, which are big tree like zombies basically, and that's true. And then at the end of that zone, you're fighting wild bosses, but then you're told to go find the tower, and you walk down this street, and out of nowhere, this giant obelisk shows up, like summoned in from the heavens. And it looks like it's like, angular Quake style architecture. And you go in there and there's like a dude who has like a weird, huge, monstrous body, face empty or covered with a veil, and who starts talking to you in otherworldly riddles that are just like, okay, there is some other wild shit going on here. And from there, you end up going to like a hub zone that connects to and the hub zone is called the Labyrinth, and it's a bunch of floating platforms, and you're just in weird, cosmic sci-fi hub, like that specific trope is brought in basically, and you're like going through portals from world to world, learning about how this force has ravaged all these other places, and you're fighting different enemy variations in each one, and learning the myths of these different worlds. Like here is a desert, world that managed to push back the Root, and you're fighting against the people there. And here you're in like swampland, and there's like a bug queen and a bunch of gross bug monsters, and it's just like it is to some degree a popcorn game for me. Like it is definitely turn my brain off. Shoot, make the numbers go up. But it feels to me as distinct in terms of its shooting model as something like Destiny. It's not to say it's as good as Destiny necessarily, but it has that sense of like this has its own character. This isn't biting something. And in fact, I want there to be games that feel like this.
Also sounds far more approachable than Destiny at the current moment.
It's so approachable compared to contemporary Destiny. Is Destiny?
Here's a game that says, "Do you want to play me?"
Yep.
I'm interested in you being
part
of this
I would love for you to play this game with me. Come on in. Come through and play. There's a bunch of new stuff that I've only messed with a little bit, where like you can re-roll past areas you've been to get the different events.
This was tied to, there's a big expansion.
There's a big expansion. I don't think that expansion is out
It's the
yet.
last expansion,
There's
right?
The last expansion is about to come out. That's called Subject 2923. I think that's out in a couple of days. I got code for that, and I was like, you know what? I never finished that game. I should just go finish that game. So I put a bunch of time into that this weekend, and just like, if you're like, I want to play a Dark Souls game but with guns, they made that.
Yeah, I do. Yes, I do.
And again, it's the thing that's so distinct about it is the way that it understands what it's doing is not just that. Like, it's kind of unfair to say that, but what it's doing is almost more like it understands the tone and thematic design of Dark Souls, so that, for instance, boss fights require you to think about space in a way that Dark Souls boss fights do. Like the Ornstein and Smoke fight in Dark Souls is like, okay, I have to think about where these big pillars are. I have to think about spacing and distance. But because it's a shooter, you also have to think about like choke points where you can bring in the ads that come into the fight to take care of them so that they don't overwhelm you. Or you have to think about height variation so that you can try to get a higher point to shoot down at melee characters who are going to have a harder time hitting you. Stuff like that. And that stuff does feel really unique. And I think it's unfortunate in some ways that I hope that comparing it to Dark Souls gets it more eyes and not turns more eyes.
This game's only 13 hours long. That's like,
dude,
what?
I
thought I was like, it's gonna be 35, and I'm gonna tell myself I'm gonna play this, but I'm not. 13 hours.
Yeah, totally.
Let's go.
just jump in, just go for it. There's some hard fights. Listen, you need co-op, buddy. I'm right here. Hit me up.
Okay.
Hit me up. I keep all my progress, so it's nice to jump in someone else's world, help them out, maybe get some trait points. They added. I came back at the perfect time because I got back to where I was in my previous playthrough, which was there was a shopkeeper with a dog, and I pet the dog, and this time I got a thing that was like. A very good, you've unlocked trait or mod, a very good boy. And what? I've pet this dog before, but apparently 2 or 3 days ago, they modded in that if you pet this dog, you get the ability to summon it in combat. So now I have a dog bud who fights alongside with me, which is great. So yeah, people should check out Remnant from the Ashes. It's free on Epic right now. I think it has crossplay between Epic and Steam. So, that's my suggestion. That's my shout out. Next week I have some other stuff to talk about too, but I think that's probably good enough. I do have one update. If you have an email, you can send it to gaming@vice.com. Last week we talked about bad corporate emails. Do you remember this?
Yes, right. We put out a request.
We did put out a request. We got 2 of them here. The first one here actually came into me from someone on Twitter, and I'm just going to read. I have to edit it a little bit. I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble here. Okay, so. This is anonymous. Okay, so the latest Waypoint Radio episode, the tone deaf corporate email thing. A few years ago, the head of my company sent some emails around the holidays, similar vibe, trying to engage with people. And it had an actual poll to let people vote on what he should name his boat. This motherfucker has a history of just showing his entire ass at least once or twice a year and continuing to fail upward.
Wow.
Uh-huh. But the wrinkle in this story is that I can't find this email anymore. I think that corporate communications people are really leaning on that recall email button these days, like some auto-delete my tweet feature. I'm sure that it still exists or that it's subpoenaable, but it makes it way harder to access. Anyway, corporate America is a prison. This job is a prison. Obscure home movies references forever. Can you imagine? Vote on the name of my boat? I guess if I could submit my own names, I'd have a good time. But I bet I bet it was multiple choice.
What kind of boat?
I don't know. Probably a yacht.
Because just like boats can range, right? Like the most charitable version, it's it's just like a little.
Not ones that have names, Patrick.
You're right.
No, hold on.
You name everything.
No.
You get a boat.
You are incorrect, Kato. Everyone, you buy a boat, it has a name. Like I know. Where we go in Wisconsin, all those boats, even the dinky ones that I know that is a hand-me-down and they're just using that boat until it costs more than $1,000 of repairs and it's going to the junkyard, they all have names.
I don't know, my family has one that's just an onboard motor on what's basically a bathtub. That doesn't have a name.
Not yet. You should give it a name.
I would give that thing a name.
It's up to you. You can do it. You should give it a name.
All right.
But I agree, it's probably a yacht.
Here's a way to make. But with this, say it's a yacht. What if it's a big enough yacht that you can throw everyone a sick boat party, and you're like, hey, let's name my boat, and then
that would be the good guy rich person.
It still might not be because ultimately it's a day of bread and circuses, and then get off my boat,
and then I get the fuck off. Get the fuck off the SS I own you or whatever. We got another one of these that came in. This one also, I'm not going to read names. I'm not going to read anyone's name here just in case. When I worked at Restoration Hardware, I guess I'm just naming names. I changed my mind. I'm just not saying who sent it. We once got a missive from Senior VP that was to be read out to all staff at the morning meeting. His motivational tactics were to encourage us to be all in, quote unquote, like Hernan Cortez's men, the conquistador, when he had them burn their boats so they literally couldn't go back. Yes, he wanted to sell furniture like we were Cortez, the killer of the fucking up the Maya. Whew. Bad. Not good.
God damn.
I love, the type of corporate brain rot that's I'm not just upper middle management. I am the 21st century Genghis Khan.
Yeah, I'm a conqueror.
I am going to sack their villages and raise their walls. And by that, I mean I'm going to show 15% revenue growth across all districts this quarter.
Oh, these absolute nightmare people. I got another really important question. This one comes in from Waz, who says, If you ask for ketchup at the drive-thru, how much should you get? The whataburger next to my apartment keeps giving me 1 when I ask for spicy ketchup, and I feel like this isn't enough for a medium fry. Bonus question: best fast food burger that's under $7, meaning no Five Guys or Muya? What's Muya? I don't know Muya.
Muya's fine, but they're too expensive, and yeah.
I think Shake Shack is also over $7.
It's right on the line. It's right on the line.
Because I love Shake Shack, because that would be my answer, and I'm pulling up the app.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. Shack burger, regular Shack burger, nothing special on it. $5.99.
Hell yeah, that's my answer.
That makes the cut.
Hell yeah.
I like a Shake Shack. The little crispy bits on the end. God,
so good.
Their other sandwiches are good too. My wife's not a big burger person. Their chicken sandwiches are great. The little even the I'm always happy when because my daughter loves chicken nuggets, and so we get them there. They're like really like good ass chicken nuggets, and I'm like, she doesn't know there's 6 in here. Gulp.
Yeah,
you can have 5.
Fair.
She's a small person. She doesn't need.
She doesn't need all that.
You're gonna waste one of these anyway. You're gonna stick one of these in your
very
nose.
quickly, but absolutely, you're not getting enough ketchup. If you ask for ketchup,
Correct.
2 is the minimum.
At least 2.
At least 2.
Yeah.
Ideally, someone gives you 3 or 4.
Spicy ketchup, it's one of those like fancy sauces. Usually you gotta pay extra for those.
Yeah, but is that true?
I feel like
Whataburger spicy. Is that
I don't know about specifically Whataburger.
This is a
I just
business
mean
model, because there's some chicken places that are like, our chicken's cheap. Oh, you want dipping sauces?
Right. True. True.
That'll cost you.
True.
Like, which is a perverse business model. But
I guess the question then
is
if let's say it's an additive to get the additional 1. How much are you willing to pay for that extra ketchup?
Okay.
Like, is 50 cents? You're good.
Rob
50 cents
has a burger
for
answer.
thing of ketchup.
I think.
no, I'm just saying, this is how capitalism has robbed us of the things that like are rightfully ours. The best burger place is like the Greasy Spoon place, like in your hometown, that like just sears the shit out of a burger. That thing that everyone loves about Shake Shack is
That's
pretty
burgers.
common style. That's a smash burger, and that was a really common style. But those places started going out of business because they couldn't pay their fucking rent, and they were just getting like steamrolled by the marketing of places like Five Guys and shit. But like, I just looked it up. If you're still in the Northwest Indiana area, let me know if Minor Done is still good, because they are still charging $5.89 for a really good smash burger, and they make great milkshakes. And that's kind of like, that for me is kind of it, right? Where like all these places like Five Guys or Shake Shack, they're all fine, but all of them don't actually scratch the itch of what I actually want, which is the weird 50s Greasy Spoon diner that just existed in my town for 30 years, right? And that's kind of it. We're all trying to figure out like what corporatized version of that is the best, and we go to war for it. What weird. This is what I get radicalized over. Austin's like, oh man, the legalism is a trap, Rob. And I'm like, fuck you, Austin. And then burgers. I'm like, no, of course we're fighting about Whataburger versus Five Guys. Fuck that. Rise up. defend Shoops.
God. Well, this is I mean, for what it's worth, what you're talking about is material and real. Food is real. Food is in front of you. It's easy to get fired up about food. And
those places would hire you.
Again, the reason that legalism works is because it's abstract. You go like, yeah, I guess it's fucking up in the clouds or in the courthouses. Who cares? Fucking that burger. You remember how it tastes. You should get radical about your burgers, and that's why you should come to my new burger restaurant.
Now you got me thinking about a Juicy Lucy.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
What's a Juicy Lucy?
It's I believe it's the place they claim to have started the phenomenon of the putting the cheese in the burger
inside
as opposed to putting it on top. And so Juicy Lucy, I believe there's like there is like dispute over that between like two different like chains.
I love
Juicy
that.
Lucy's in Minneapolis.
Yeah, that's my favorite shit.
And my wife has family out there, and we always like make a point to like drag. I was like, look, if you're not taking us, we're going at some point to get it. I even have like a coffee mug from there. Now I'm thinking about that burger, and it's causing me some.
From Wikipedia,
some problems.
2 bars about 3 miles from each other on Cedar Avenue in South Minneapolis both claim to have invented the burger. Matt's Bar and the 5-8 Club. Matt's credits the bar's former owner and namesake, Matt Bristol. One account claims it preceded his purchase of the bar in the 1950s, but that Bristol formally added it to the menu and thus popularized it. Another version that the burger was invented by a customer in 1954 who remarked, "Ooh, that's one juicy Lucy," after biting into it. The 5-8 Club does not provide a particular origin story, but the bar itself was originally a speakeasy during the 1920s. That's not relevant. I don't care that it was a speakeasy. It doesn't mean it invented the Juicy Lucy. The two bars offer slightly different variations of the burger. One difference is the spelling.
Just explaining their secrecy over the origin.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, they're like, but they're very secretive folk, aren't they? One difference is the spelling. Matt's removes the letter I in juicy, supposedly in an inadvertent misspelling dating to the burger's creation, while the 5-8 Club utilizes the normal spelling. Shirts worn by the staff of the 5-8 Club have the motto, "If it's spelled right, it's done right." While advertising for Matt's bar says, "Remember, if it's spelled correctly, you are eating a shameless ripoff." They did not go for the
Fargo
rhyme.
season 4.
The 5-8 Club offers several different cheese options for their version, while the version at Matt's only contains American cheese.
I believe our family is a Matt's Bar family.
Okay.
We're like, options? Fuck you. You take the burger that they make, and you'll like it.
God. Let me just put the last little journalism, media industry spin on this. In 2018, the editors of The Thrillist wrote that, quote, "The Juicy Lucy is an important milestone in the evolution of hamburgers themselves, leading the charge for industrious chefs and more than a few infomercial entrepreneurs to begin stuffing their burgers." That's the burger history there.
Well,
I think
if you're in Minneapolis, it's a. I don't know if they're doing takeout these days, but it is one of the best. Like, it was like a religious experience. Or
good.
Part of that is probably because I only get it once every 4 or 5 years. But
that sounds great. That sounds great. I love the name, the 5-8 Club. That's a great name. I love the name Matt's Bar. You're right. This is Fargo to me. I love it so much. In 2014, President Barack Obama visited Matt's and had a Juicy Lucy, prompting the 5-8 Club to offer him one of theirs. You would be so tight. You'd be so upset if the president showed up to have one of to have your rival's burger. Fuck. Oh, I want that episode so bad. Jesus. If you have local food rivalries, please write in and let us know.
Yes.
I want.
There's another one we can look up about the pizza in Chicago. Leave it for another day. We're not
That's
doing
a different day. Pizza rivalry. Yeah. I mean, there's a pizza rivalry in North Jersey.
The place I took you to is involved in a theft related.
Pequod's got beef.
Well, I don't think they serve beef, but yes, I think they have a beef over. We'll look it up later. Look up Pequod's. We'll revisit this on. Next week's episode, we will revisit another.
Did you know the founder of Pequod's executed Illuminati?
Oh my God. God. If you have these, please send them in. There are so many of them, twin brothers who own different pizza shops, each of them refusing to say the other is the true inheritor of their father, stuff like that. Please send those in, gaming@vice.com. I cannot wait to read all of your restaurant rivalries.
That would be a good podcast series.
I was put restaurant rivalries in a someone.
That's the name.
That's right there.
Delete this comment.
It's ours. We own this.
Add it to that secret
document. Don't worry about it.
Fuck, lore reasons, but
for food. But I love it. Fuck. You do okay. So the way you build this show, we have to stop. I can't dream up the
don't put
the
this
block.
on tape.
This is ours. Put it on tape and then send it to yourself in the mail so you own it. That's how it works. That's how copyright works. All right, everyone. That's going to do it for us this week. I'm Austin Walker. You follow me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. Follow the show, Waypoint, on Twitter, waypoint.vice.com. Go read Rob's review of Flight Simulator. Give Microsoft Flight Simulator time. It's trying to give you the world. Bam. You're in Rob, that's your best Don Draper headline I've ever seen. Patrick, where can people find you on the internet?
They found me at Patrick Clubbick. One last thing. My daughter saw me playing Fall Guys and then wanted to play it, and it's too complicated and hard for her to do. But I don't push games on my kid. I think parents that relive their youth through their children should rethink their priorities. I don't care if she plays games, but she said, I'd like to play one of these. And I was like, okay. So I don't know what she should play because I've spent no time like thinking about what games she would be interested in. So if people have recommendations, she's almost 4. She'll be 4 in a couple weeks, and her eye-hand coordination is pretty good. So I don't know. I was thinking of like one of the Lego games that I could play with her. But if people have recommendations of games they play with their kids, I would be curious to hear those. So at Patrick Lubbock.
I'm currently.
Snipper clips.
Wait, what would you say, Kato?
Get snipper clips.
Get snipper clips. Well,
I think that'd be too hard
so?
for.
Yeah, that game's hard.
Yeah.
It's funny though.
It is funny. It's funny.
It is, but it's like the thing you don't realize though is like, well, I guess snipper clips doesn't have like the camera manipulation is like the big like, the hard parts. Like she understands she could hold the Fall Guys controller and move it around. It understands 3D space and like understands jumping and like could do that. But then it would just like she'd touch the other analog stick and it was just like and she started to wrap her head around it. But
yeah,
that's a lot. It's for a 4-year-old. So like games that like don't involve camera movement, which is why the Lego games seem like they might. You just run around and smack the A button.
That makes sense.
But maybe. Yeah.
Rob, where can people find you?
Is the Juicy Lucy really that much of an innovation?
This is what I'm saying.
Like, it took a team of researchers to be like, cheese in the middle.
No. Someone got some ideas, put some cheese in the middle.
Ideas only seem obvious in retrospect. Rob.
Damn, true. The episteme has changed. The paradigm has shifted. We've
Also,
moved on
Rob,
to a
have
new
you ever
world.
put cheese in the middle? That's hard.
I mean,
Getting that temperature to cook right, like that meat to cook right, and it still have melted cheese or not too cold cheese in the middle.
Kato's
There's
on
a lot
it
of
right now.
temperature.
Kato's speaking
that
for the
you have to
chefs.
deal
Kind
with.
of, do you get fired as a short order cook or something?
Look, I'm
Hey,
just
fuck
saying.
you, man.
We do hard
Let me tell
work
you,
back
not
there.
easy.
He worked at Matt's bar.
Yeah. We do a bunch of different cheeses. We don't even just do American cheese. Just American cheese? Yeah, it's a single temperature. Cheese is melted at different temperatures, asshole.
Yeah, different melting points.
Asshole. God damn. Rob, you didn't say Rob Zacny on Twitter. Kato.
Rob Zacny.
Kato, you've earned it. Where can people find you on the internet?
At @A_Kato_appears on Twitter.
There it is. We'll be back next week, and whether or not you're for legalism or against
Next
it.
week? It's Monday.
Fuck, it's Monday. Oh, fuck. It is Monday.
It's Monday.
It's Monday. We'll be back in a few days. Is anything happening this week? What are we looking for?
There's a
SGDQ?
Nintendo Indies thing.
SGDQ's happening, which is it's very funny to watch it. You know, it's like I'm glad they're doing it despite not having. But like the crowd is such an SGDQ thing at this point.
Yeah.
I kind of like it. No one's shouting anything. So
That's what Twitch chat is for. Everyone's just typing or.
yeah, I love it. I love if I could take crowds at live events and shove them to the side of the screen the way that I do with chat, I would love more live events.
Hey, man,
Austin
Twitch
used to
chat's
really
one good
enjoy
thing.
golf before people started shouting in the hole, and then
I get the fuck out of here.
He
This
was
is
glad when Gary McCord got fired.
you're
Fuck
ruining
that
the
guy.
elegance of the moment. I've been a golf crowd person, so that means I
Beautiful game.
I once said something to Tiger Woods. That's the thing that happened. I was like,
What?
Yeah.
What?
I was right there. We were like very close at there was a
What did you say? Just like
I was
good-
like keep
good
your
game?
head up or something like
Chip
that.
it in.
I was like, you got this. It was like one of those things. Chip it.
Yeah.
Why don't you just chip it in and shoot that guy? Just do it. God. Throw a touchdown. Anyway, we'll be back on Friday we'll talk about, I guess, whatever that Nintendo event is. I'll talk about Star Renegades. I think there's an S at the end of that. That game's fucking dope. And some more. So get ready.
We'll see what else the army gets up to on
my
Twitch.
God.
Oh no! Can't
Someone
handle
should
that.
ban the Army IMO. The Army is canceled. First they came for Genghis Khan. Oh, God.
for its own good. This is like some go tell the Spartans shit, but like on Twitch, where it's just like it's just these poor bastards like in this bunker. Their only company, Twitch chat, and a very sad looking stuffed Snorlax.
It's really bad.
And like they're just gonna be kept there until they're released from the cell.
It's
until the location is
seconds ago. It looks like, or no, was this yesterday? When was this? No, this was moments ago.
No, Galt just read a new piece,
Matt Galt just put a piece. The U.S. Army makes an awkward return to Twitch. So go read that.
Just go watch the archive, and it's beautiful. It's the one time I've encouraged Twitch chat. It was,
Also,
that image is great. That image that cuts to the article is good.
It's so good.
If what it takes is for the location to fall, good luck. They're in Fort Knox. They're doomed to that hell forever.
After a month-long break, the U.S. Army, it was a month ago when they took this break? What is time? The U.S. Army esports team returned to Twitch on Friday, August 14th. Sergeant First Class Christopher Jones streamed from the Army esports team base in Fort Knox, Kentucky for more than 3 hours. He spent 1 hour of that time playing World of Warcraft. But before he gamed, Jones twisted in his chair and fielded questions from an increasingly aggressive Twitch chat. Quote, "War crimes are a heinous crime," Jones said early in the chat, responding to Twitch viewers' questions. "Those are not conducive to the United States Army." Whew. Oh, it's all I have
conducive. Just a ringing condemnation.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. That's not conducive to what we're trying to do here at all.
It's said as if you said rainy days are not conducive to playing baseball with the same gravitas. Fuck off. All right, I'm closing this window before I read more terrible quotes. Because boy, whew. You can find, we already did the Twitter stuff. Bowen does the theme song. Find out more about that at waypoint.zone/BOEN. We will be back Friday, and whether you agree with legalism or not, I think we can all agree, fuck capitalism. Go home.
Hell of a diner name, by the way. I would go to Lovecraft Country.
I want to go to a diner right now so bad. Not so bad that I'll do it, but I want to.
I got breakfast at my cafe this morning, outdoors.
Yeah, of course.
So I didn't get the Formica countertop experience. Yeah.
My favorite new upcoming Control expansion. The Formica counter experience. The FCE. God. How's everyone doing?
Good. I'm
Yeah.
here. When you're here, your family.
Huh?
Thanks, Kato. Appreciate it.
I'd probably feel better if I hadn't done a 3 a.m. embargo.
Oh, was that?
Yeah.
Mm,
I'm
That's not
sleepy.
good.
I'm sleepy now.
You look sleepy. You look dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, Rob sending me a message at 1:30 in the morning.
Hey, look, you were
his
green.
time, 12:30
You
my
were
time.
green.
Are you up? No, I was not up. No, I was in bed.
I was like,
10:45.
Even I was asleep by then.
every time I was reading a sentence, I was like, something new was wrong with it, and I was
No.
like, that's not good. Like, that's one of those things where you know, it's not like you're catching things. It's not like you keep finding things because you're so sharp. It's because for everything you fix, you fuck up like 2 other things.
Totally. Why does it keep doing this? Open the right thing.
I like that
Y'all
we're
bit the
podcasting
clock.
with the commander from XCOM.
What?
I wish.
Just for a second there, Rob was completely silhouetted like the fucking
Yeah, the way
chair.
his depending on how like tall
Really
he is
good.
versus his windows changes his lighting
much-
complexion.
Yeah. All right. I'm ready to clap if y'all are.
Yep.
I'm ready to
Oh,
yawn
yeah.
is what I'm
Give
ready
me
to
a
do,
second.
apparently.
Shout outs to
right.
Indonesia.
Let's do 3 seconds. I realized I said that and I was like, I hope they don't think I mean 3 seconds from now.
We're pros.
Yeah.
I thought about that and I was like, okay, I could do that. That would be a good. Like, you know what? You want it? We're doing this
We'll
long
start tossing
enough.
some math in
Feel
there.
like we could toss in some basic math.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because I'm any good at it. I'm trash.
No.
Calculators, what's up? The moment those were in, phones, throw out transit directions. I don't know how that works anymore. So I'm not giving myself an advantage in this race. I'm just trying to make it spicy.
You want the challenge. Yeah, you want to spice it up. Yeah, I got you. Give us a little extra, before we get into the podcast. I like that. This I like.
That's podcasting.
We can start yelling about +3.
+3. Pan.
We're not doing gambling odds, but we can think about it.
All right.